Elections Alberta is they have approved, remarkably without question or consideration, a referendum question for the stay in Canada status quo Looney Tunes. Tell us about this, Corey.
Yeah, well, that was spearheaded by Thomas Lukasik as a way, I guess, to try and throw sand in the gears of the independence movement out in Alberta. For those not familiar with Thomas Lukasik, he's a disgraced former minister with the Redford government, most noteworthy for dumping a $20,000 cellular bill on taxpayers for one of his personal trips to Poland. Either way, he has, he's playing the system. I'll kind of give credit where I do for being, clever with it. He jumped the gun, put in an application to petition for a referendum to say that Alberta will stay within Canada. And it's kind of exposing where Elections Alberta is, I think, in some ways,
Mhm.
that they just accepted that without question. But it really abuses the spirit of the referendum legislation. I mean, if you're going to hold a referendum, it means you're proposing to change something. He's holding a referendum to do nothing. No matter which way people vote on that referendum, nothing will change. In other words, it's a poll, and
Right.
we would be using the Alberta electoral resources and money to hold a poll. Uh, Also, he's got an interpretation that's possible with the legislation that question being so similar to the one being held in the real referendum question could cancel out the ability to hold a referendum on independence. So,
Mm.
meanwhile, the Alberta Prosperity Project question, which went after the legislation changed and actually has a lower petition bar,
Huh.
the electoral officer has put that to the Court of King's Bench now to ask whether or not it's a constitutional question. So they're getting all the roadblocks on the APP side, while Lukasik's basically troll petition is just gotten a free run to go in there, and but he's already been stepping in it.
Yeah. Just so people can understand how similar the questions are, the APP question that has now been referred to Court of King's Bench to see if it is unconstitutional reads, do you agree that the province of Alberta shall become a sovereign country and cease to be a province in Canada? Now, on the flip side, Lukasik's question is, do you agree that Alberta should remain in Canada? It actually seems kind of less specific than the other question. And as you rightly point out, it's completely a troll petition because he filed so that before the law was changed. So now he has to meet like nearly 300 or yeah, nearly 300,000 signatures in 100 or sorry, in 90 days, right? Because
Yeah.
he doesn't have the 120 days. So he knows this is going to fail. He doesn't even care. I think what he's trying to do is sabotage the whole idea of having a referendum, I think, for a generation just by putting a failed one forward. Lise, what do you think?
Well, it I mean, it does shine a big bright light on the way that the left will weaponize this in their advantage, and I do think that it says something about the people working at Elections Alberta that they would accelerate the stay in Canada question and throw hammers at the APP question. I mean, what is Danielle Smith's response going to be to this? We know that she came out and said, we are very much suggesting that Elections Alberta reconsider their stance in putting this question toward the court. Um, but is Danielle Smith going to have to pull what she did with the Alberta Health Services Board when she realized that they were actively working against the people of Alberta and fire them all? Is that what's going to have to happen at Elections Alberta to get this figured out?
I think we kid ourselves when we think there isn't a deep state, a swamp, whatever you want to call it, an intense bureaucracy working against conservatives at all times, no matter what. Like to think that the bureaucracy in any given place is not just an entrenched bunch of unionist crazy people, I think is
Yes.
unfair. I think to find people who are normal might be the exception and not the rule. Drea, I know you're in BC, so you don't really have these considerations quite yet. I know this is something percolating and fomenting in Saskatchewan, but I'll just ask you to maybe take the temperature of British Columbians on this issue. Uh, if Alberta goes, do you think BC would fracture?
I think in some ways, if you point to our last election, you can look at it almost being 50-50 when it came to conservative voters and not. There was a poll, I would say maybe 2 months ago, that went out asking how British Columbians are viewing the conversation of separatism. And I believe at that time it was around 30%, which is quite a lot compared to what I would have guessed even a couple of months ago. So as things keep getting worse and worse, I think that would change, especially if we see Alberta go ahead and go forward with it, and then Saskatchewan. Then what's going to happen? It's going to normalize it. And I think that's what's happening here. Is this is getting actually real. That's why you're seeing elections Alberta no longer be independent like it's supposed to. It's not supposed to be weighing in on these issues or tugging one way or the other. And now you see there's a battle of which question is going to go forward. And I think that's because, what is it? The UCP base, I think 70%
Yep.
is for this. So they're going, holy crap, what can we do to push back on this? This is just one way. And correct me if I'm wrong, does this not open things up for, a legal battle too, where you have to discuss whether or not this is constitutional or not before
Yes.
you even get to the meat and potatoes?
That's where we're at.
It's so interesting, Drea, because Sheila and I were just talking about this last weekend. And what's happening in Alberta is a mirror image of what happened during Brexit, when Brexit was voting to leave the European Union. And what we learned in our research just this last weekend is that there were 4 years of legal battles before the Brexit question hit the British people and they could vote on their independence away from the European Union. So yes, Drea Humphrey, that's exactly what's happening. They are lining up the legal battles to kick the can down the field, to slow things down so that the radical left and the Remain camp can get all of their ducks in a row, because this is such a popular concept. The people of the West are done. They are done listening to Ottawa. We are done being under the thumb of Eastern elites, the Laurentian Triangle. We are done with it. They know it. And those numbers, those 30% numbers out of BC, way higher in Saskatchewan and Alberta, that scares the crap out of them. So yes,
Well,
that's exactly what they're
And
doing.
I think it matters where those 30% are, right? Like you could say in BC, the population is pretty well split 50-50 between NDPers and conservatives, but it's where the conservative votes are. And those are the places that are closest to Alberta. Like, Merritt is a great place, and I feel like it could be in southern Alberta. Like you go to these places and you're like,
Yeah.
they're not, those are culturally distinct places from the Lower Mainland. They are not culturally distinct places from places like Alberta and Saskatchewan.